Hello everyone and welcome to the program People, Politics and Power. I am Imonia Marere. Flooding has long been a recurring challenge in Nigeria, with its roots dating back to the country's geographic and climatic conditions. Historically, Nigeria's flood risks have been tied to its major river systems, particularly the Niger and Benue rivers, which swell during the rainy season, often causing extensive damage to communities along the banks. The coastal regions have also been vulnerable due to rising sea levels and poorly managed urbanization. Over the years, flooding incidents have become more frequent and severe, partly due to climate change and deforestation. The devastating floods of 2012, which displaced millions, marked a turning point, highlighting the urgent need for robust flood management systems. As of 2024, the situation remains critical. Nigeria has witnessed severe floods in multiple states, displacing thousands, threatening agriculture, infrastructure, and livelihoods. NEMA, that is the National Emergency Management Agency, says 259 deaths have been recorded and over 625,000 persons have been displaced. Rapid urbanization, poor drainage systems, and extreme weather events are exacerbating the problem. The scale of the challenge is humongous. The 2024 flooding in Borno State, northeast Nigeria, has been one of the most devastating in recent history, with the collapse of the Alau Dam being a significant contributing factor. The dam, which was filled beyond capacity after continuous heavy rainfall, broke its banks, triggering widespread flooding in Maiduguri and the surrounding areas. Over 1 million people have been affected, with at least 414,000 displaced and almost 40 persons reported dead. Several neighborhoods, including Kofa Shehu, Custom, and Maiduguri, were heavily impacted, and critical infrastructure such as hospitals, schools, and IDP camps have been severely damaged. Additionally, 70% of Maiduguri was reported to be underwater, with concerns about disease outbreaks due to damaged sanitation systems and submerged graveyards. Efforts to respond include the opening of new IDP camps and, of course, federal agencies along with international organizations like the United Nations and particularly the World Health Organization, which are stepping in to address health, water, and sanitation needs. There have been reports of wild animals escaping from the flooded zoo, adding to the chaos. The last time Borno saw flooding on this scale in 1994, making this event one of the worst in 30 years. On the program today, we shall look at the magnitude of flooding that has taken place and what more to expect for the rest of the rainy season. What policy options are open to governments to combat this situation? What are governments doing with ecological funds? And of course, what other strategies are being put in place to mitigate and even avoid similar disaster? I've joining me in the studio two of my guests, and one is also joining us via Zoom from Jos in Plateau State. Here in the studio we have with us Ambassador Usman Sarki, Nigeria's immediate past permanent representative to the United Nations and an indigene of Borno State. Thank you so much for joining us, Ambassador.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
We're also joined by Mr. Benro Olajuigbe, who is the Executive Director, Emergency Risk Alert. Thank you so much, Mr. Olajuigbe, for joining us.
It's a pleasure being here.
All right.
Thank you.
And joining us via Zoom is Dr. Christopher Becker. He is the Director, Environmental Quality Control, National Environmental Standards and Regulations Enforcement Agency, NESRA. Thank you so much for finding time to join us, Dr. Becker. Dr. Becker, can you hear us? Okay, right.
Yes, but you keep on timing out. I mean, the network is very unstable.
We hope that it becomes more stable as the program goes on.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Right. Okay, let's take a very short break, and when we return, we get started with the discussion.
Of our dream, the Nigeria we need is the united, indissoluble, and cohesive Nigeria, which guarantees equity, fairness, justice, and prosperity for its citizens. That is our focus on people, politics, and power. It is fresh, insightful, impactful. It's a must-watch. People, politics, and power on AIT.
All right, thank you so much for staying with us. Let's get started now. And Ambassador Usman Sarki, a former permanent representative to the United Nations for Nigeria, is an indigene of Borno State. Thank you so much, Ambassador, for joining us.
Thank you, sir.
Tell us, from a personal experience,
Yes.
what really happened in Maiduguri and its environs.
Thank you. Well, first of all, I should like to thank you for inviting me to this program and to really commend our communications for being seized with this disaster and bringing the suffering of our people, to the attention of the rest of the country and the rest of the world. What happened was that on Monday night, that's the 9th of September, and then the early hours of the morning of the 10th on Tuesday, Maiduguri was overflooded by water. And up till today, the inundation still remains, although the waters are receding. And it was a catastrophic incident that took people by surprise and unawares in most cases, although the signs were there that the inundation could happen. And because of the lack of readiness and also absence of facilities in place to respond to this disaster, the magnitude was multiplied, and really we have seen the suffering of the people. Like you said in your introductory remark, over 400,000 people displaced and over 1 million people affected. And we don't know the tally of dead people yet. So it's a very serious, disaster, almost a catastrophe. And the response so far has been very well organized, but it's a drop in the ocean because the magnitude of the problem requires far more resources, financial, material resources, to mitigate. Nothing that has been done so far could really ameliorate the situation, but only to respond in the best way the government and people can. So it's a very big disaster.
When you
really
say the signs were there, what were those signs that that one would have noticed to say this has happened?
Yes.
Because from the reports we are getting from the Minister of Water Resources, the dam was only a secondary, the allowed dam was only a secondary causative action. Actually, a river overflowed its banks and impacted the dam.
Quite so. Well, two major rivers pass through Maiduguri. One of them is Ngadabul, that is the White Stream in Kanuri, and the other is the Komodo Gana, the main river. So both of them really, because of the heavy rains this year and the lots of waters from the west and north and other parts of the country flowing down into the eastern part in Maiduguri, towards Maiduguri area, the cumulated effect of that water is to overflow the dam, and also the rivers could not be controlled because of urbanization and blockage of the routes of the river, unfortunately, of the rivers. And that led to the unprecedented flow of water in Maiduguri. Ordinarily, the waters of the two rivers, when they meet around Gwenge area, they move to Jere local government. And that is where you have the Jere Rice Bowl. where the waters will empty themselves in the Ngumachi area right up to Lake Chad area. But this year, and in several years before that, the governor has been warning people, that is Professor Babagana Omar Azulum, not to do construction on the riverbed or very close to the river, and not to do illegal settlements or even to dump urban refuse in these areas. I can remember 2 years ago when he went personally to clear the riverbed along near Lagos Street, the bridge of Lagos Street, but people are recalcitrant. They still came back to construct illegally and to really obstruct the flow of the water, and that is one of the immediate causes. But the larger impact is the topography of Maiduguri itself. It's a flat land with no natural barriers to stop water from flooding the place. So we need more drainage, we need more outlets for water, and early warning systems to be there, to be in place in order to warn the inhabitants and also to make the authorities to be prepared to respond to this type of challenges. All these factors have not been there, unfortunately. But the response by the state government has been very commendable, has been swift, but the magnitude of the problem is really overpowering. Whatever anybody could do is simply to do their best, but their best is not enough. And that is the situation. That tells you how powerful the force of water and nature was and the extent and magnitude of the crisis.
Now, Mr. Olajigbe never has said that the overall trend that we have seen so far is consistent with what was predicted earlier in the year, and that about 33 states were going to be impacted by the floods this year. And it appears none of those states is prepared for what has happened or what will come.
Well, you are quoting NEMA, but the question is, what has NEMA done? Is it the one that was predicted? It was NEMA work. I think the problem we have in this country is that we must understand the trust and the trust of emergency work. Emergency work is not about response alone. It's about even taking action to reduce the risk. In essence, we need to understand what is the policy that is in place in terms of emergency management. That is the responsibility of government. What hazard investigation, hazard mapping that have been done, not only flood alone. It's surprising that even NEMA is saying this. Not only flood alone, other aspects of hazard in Nigeria, none is attended to by having a definite policy on each of the hazard and how, after hazard then, after policy that you have in place, then the policy will lead to development of plans. In this way, preparedness plan, which he had made allusion to, that there is virtually absence of that in the country. And from there, you look at the execution. Who are the people to execute it? Who are the people to intervene, the intervention aspect, which feed on capacity, which feed on finance, which feed on consolidated funding of emergency in Nigeria. These are professional work. These are work that should be on the ground before you even talk of disaster management. We are getting this wrong because all that happened in Maiduguri is a predictable hazard. It's not a sudden, of course, it became sudden when it happened, but then it's what could be foreseen. It's about knowing flooding is perennial in Nigeria. In fact, you don't even need a prophet to tell you that it's going to happen next year. And you don't equally need a prophet to tell you that nothing will be done to prevent it or to reduce the risk. That has been our pattern and our operation. And I don't want to talk about the political economy of emergency response in Nigeria. But because that one is another thing entirely. Why things don't work in Nigeria the way they should be. It's cheaper. Disaster risk work is cheaper than responding to emergency. Let's even assuming without considering what the ambassador have just said, that, okay, the argument that, okay, the flood was fed by rivers, the flood was not from dam and everything. The fact is that there is an hydrological cycle in that environment. Look, I heard one thing that even the SSG visited the dam 2 weeks before the collapse of the dam and everything. And I don't know, I can't confirm it, allegedly validate the fact that there's no problem with this thing. Look, dam management is not about visiting the place. Let me tell you briefly what constitutes, when you are managing a dam, a national dam, one, you consider the age of dam. When was it built? In the 80s. Then, if it is in the 80s, what has been done before then to address the continual degeneration of the dam and the structural defect that is likely to have taken place over the years? And beyond that, what is in place, the same volume of water you have before the climate change issues, it's not the same volume of water you are likely to have around that time. That means that the volume of water, one way or the other, have increased, whether fed by river, whether fed by underground water, irrespective of the sources. All these things are problem with our challenge of understanding the hydrological cycle of a particular environment, of a particular place. They all combine in diverse permutation to dictate the enormity of flood. For example, if there is rain for 8 hours in Abuja today, because the ground as it is now looks saturated with water, an hour rainfall is likely to lead to flood. Unlike when the saturation is lower, the groundwater is not much, and the rain and the percolation can still happen. So you might not likely have flood. These are dynamics that must be understood by those who are put in place to manage emergencies in Nigeria. Not that somebody will just go there and look and validate what is not empirical deductive, whether in science, whether in reality, whether in understanding what they are doing. That's why capacity is essential in understanding the type of emergency you are responding to in the first place. Where is the capacity coming from? And let me quickly, because I know that you want to start, because of the flow and everything. So the problem is that where is the policy that has been turned into preparedness plan? Where is the preparedness plan itself? Where are the people that are going to implement the preparedness plan in terms of capacity, in terms of resources, in terms of understanding the essence of time, the essence of fastness in responding to emergency? These are issues that we have been contending with. It's not a new thing. What that could have done in this why is that, one, before now, I'm not talking of Maiduguri alone. I just want to appreciate the governor in terms of his intervention recently, but then you must equally understand the contextual issues in Maiduguri, that this is an environment that is just emerging from daring violence that has decimated people, that has crippled them, that have disarmed them of livelihood and even lives and limbs. And this is affecting them again. So it's just like re-victimizing them. But the fact is that the impact could have been reduced if we have a working government with policy, a working emergency bodies with a preparedness plan, and a prepared people that have been capacitated to respond to emergency. And this, my response is all-encompassing, including doing disaster risk activity works.
We will come back to that aspect of the discussion later on. But let's bring in Dr. Becker at this time. Dr. Becker, let's look at the environmental impact of flooding. Like you know, flooding is an annual thing in Nigeria now. Since 2012, when that impacted very seriously on Nigerians from the north to the south, from the east to the west, there has been an issue. And apart from the human beings and infrastructure that are impacted, the environment is usually also the worst hit about it. Now, what is it that as a country that we ought to be doing that we probably have not done to protect the environment against the impact of flooding?
Okay, thank you. Maybe let me come in from where the last speaker actually left off. I sense what he was trying to say, and which is there is no policy. He has not seen a policy. And even if there's a policy, there needs to be a plan. Let me add further that after a plan, there need to be procedures, which is the problem that this country is actually lacking. SOPs that tie processes, that bring players together. Now, you see, a problem like flooding is a problem that needs a multi kind of agency approach. You may be there, but when we do this silo thing that we always do, this agency goes and actually runs it and say, this is the report we have, and they don't share information, or there is no forum to bring, or platform to bring everybody together with specific procedures of saying, okay, at this point, this person should do that. And if things need to be addressed from that particular angle. So if we run response in that particular angle, that there's a policy, it dovetails into a plan, and then further into procedures, SOPs that tie everybody together and everybody knows. I mean, when you travel out of these climes, you know that the way they treat emergencies are that, supposing if we have a building actually burning, they treat it as an emergency, and every agency that is actually supposed to respond to it is given a color code. The building is burning, so the person that takes the primary is probably the fire service, because they took the issue down. The next person is probably the police to come in and see whether it's a case or no. I mean, the paramedics to make sure that they save lives or something like that. Then another person, the police will see if it's a case of arson or something like that. The environmental bodies will come and look at if there's any issue. So this is a holistic approach that it has eluded us as a country to be able to work in that manner. And when we deal with problems, natural problems, disasters like flooding and the likes that don't have it, and when they start reacting, they come with their might. You see, all our shabby preparation falls apart when we don't work together.
Yes, so that being the case, I mean, you are talking of synergy now between and amongst all the agencies that should attend to emergencies of this nature. Now, I'm more concerned now at the kind of environmental impact this disaster that has happened in Maiduguri and its environs has caused. What would be the immediate response to such environmental degradation and destruction that has taken place? Because we are told, for instance, graves have been washed up. Animals have escaped from zoos.
Yep.
Even in the prison service.
Certainly.
Yes,
Certainly.
even in the prison service, some
Oh,
convicted criminals have also escaped.
Oh, Imoni, a lot of things are going to now be unleashed. Now you see, you've just started talking about the fact that um, the water now stepping its back. We run mostly our soakaway systems that are built. They're not centrally collected, and so a kind of deluge like that would open up all these septic tanks and release all these contaminants into the environment. So you see, water is polluted, and then you're now susceptible to all kinds of communicable diseases. That's on the health angle. Now, what about the destruction of the fact that you see flooding brings erosion because erosion is tied together with flooding, and so the degradation of the land because now you find that water has now passed where it's supposed to pass, so it will now bring down areas that it's not supposed to, and so it makes it degrades the land, bring down structures, and then we'll see that uh, I mean uh, you bring the issue of stability of structures because now you now have um, uh, the fact that these lands are now suffering a lot of tension. So you will see that structures are unstable, and that basically that.
All right, let's bring in Ambassador at this point in time. Ambassador, there's a lot of, from the pictures that we have seen, there's a lot of suffering. Like those who have been impacted.
Yeah.
And like Dr. Becker said, the environment has been negatively impacted, seriously impacted, as it were. People are trying to find a living all over again. Many people are in IDP camps. And both local and international agencies, I understand that in fact the UN is mobilizing about $6 million to bring aid to these people. The government, the state government, the federal government, all of them have been doing so much, but as you say, it's like a drop in the ocean. Yes. Now, should people, or what are people doing at this moment for survival?
Well, to say that the situation is dire or people are suffering is an understatement, to be honest with you. People are very despondent. Their situation is virtually hopeless. There is no drinking water, there is no food, and the best that the state government is doing is to give money to people to look for bread, to look for eggs, to look for indomie, to look for basic things to buy. And these are in short supply because the markets have been inundated, washed away, shops are closed, they have been destroyed. Even houses, the food you have at home, you cannot use it because the water has destroyed it. So what the people want right now is massive relief work to bring in water from the neighboring states and neighboring towns. So what I will propose is that the federal government, the Northeast Development Commission, NEMA, and other responsible organizations and individuals should organize the transportation and delivery of clean drinking water to Maiduguri immediately as a matter of urgency, as a matter of utmost urgency. There is no water, there is no drinking water. You can use water tankers from Kano, Jigawa, Yobe, Gombe, Bauchi, Adama, wherever, to deliver water to Maiduguri. And also, the federal government should commission sachet water producers, what we call pure water, in any part of the country, to produce massively and deliver this water by trailer loads to Maiduguri in order to alleviate the suffering of the people. Yesterday, I was speaking with somebody, this morning, in fact, Shatima Osman Marte. He and his family were displaced from their home in Gwange Ward. They have stayed nearly a week now on top of the flyover in Maiduguri. And he told me he managed to find water only this morning to have a bath since last Tuesday. So the situation is very devastating. Some people don't even have water for ablution to pray. So they just do what is called imama, the dry ablution, to pray, because it's obligatory, you have to pray. But drinking water today is the most urgently needed commodity in Maiduguri. The other is actually the medical facilities. The Maiduguri Central Medical Store around Flour Mill area has been washed away with billions of naira worth of medical provisions. So I've been speaking with the Commissioner of Health, my childhood friend and classmate, Professor Baba Malangana. And he told me the situation is very dire. The teaching hospital, their most important, most expensive facilities have been destroyed by water already. The state general hospital, the primary healthcare units, the secondary healthcare have all been affected by water. So we need airlift of medical facilities from any part of the country or the world to Maiduguri for distribution for first responders. And particularly we should identify the vulnerable groups, women, children, the elderly, persons with disabilities, to cater for their needs immediately. This is an emergency, the like of which we have not seen in Nigeria for a very long time. The Ogumpa floods of 1980 really pales into insignificance compared to, we are talking of a city of 4 million people virtually obliterated by water. A city the size of Maiduguri, from one end to the other is about 15 or 20 kilometers in all the directions. Virtually 80% of that city is underwater. So you can imagine the proportion of the disaster. The response of 3 billion announced by the federal government will not just go anywhere. This is just one-day expenditure in terms of getting water, medicine, and food for it, just a day's expenditure. So there should be an immediate budgeting of trillions of naira, not only for recovery, but for meeting the immediate needs and the cleaning up of the city. Because the two professors will tell you that once a flood happens and the waters recede, that is the beginning of your problem, the beginning of your challenge. Cleaning up, sanitization, ensuring the structure, the reliability and integrity of structures, of bridges, of roads, of offices, of homes. You cannot even allow people to return to their homes until you make sure those homes are intact in terms of the integrity and safety of the places. In Maiduguri, most of the houses were just built haphazardly, unfortunately. And those are the areas where they are impacted very seriously. The other problem now is food security. The waters receding from Maiduguri are flowing back into the rural areas again. And these are the only place this year we were able to farm after over 10 years of insurgency. The governor, Professor Babagana Omarazem, provided transport for people to go to, in the outskirts, 10-kilometer range or radius of Maiduguri to farm. And today they trooped out in their thousands to farm this season. And now the waters will go and wash away the produce. Maize, groundnuts, beans, millet, guinea corn, everything will be washed away, will be destroyed.
That's another crisis.
Another crisis waiting, exactly. And mind you, sir, the problem now is not only Maiduguri or Borno. Maiduguri sends out virtually 200 trucks of foodstuff virtually every week or more to other parts of the country.
Yes.
Exactly.
So
Beans, maize, cattle, fish, pepper, many other things. Now these things are no longer forthcoming. And the impact is that the people in Lagos, in Ibadan, in Enugu, in Onitsha, in Warri, in Boni, other places, will now begin to feel the constriction of the supply of foodstuff coming from Maiduguri. Cheap, reliable, high-quality foodstuff coming from Maiduguri. They will no longer have that. And also manufacturers in Lagos and other parts of the country, there are goods that are transported through Maiduguri to Cameroon, Chad, Central Africa, Niger, will no longer pass through the city. Maiduguri is a major communication junction, an international communication junction. I was there last week on the road to Dikwa that passes Maiduguri to Cameroon. I saw about 100 trailers laden with goods coming from southwestern Nigeria and southeastern Nigeria. Coca-Cola, Fanta, rice, Bombita, all the sort of things you can find in supermarkets. Hundreds of trailers go out of Maiduguri to the neighboring countries. Today, that trade, that commerce will stop. So the impact, the ramification is wide. And the other issue is the spread of epidemic. If care is not taken, cholera, typhoid already I understand there are reports of cholera. I cannot confirm that, but by yesterday and this morning, it's inevitable. Now, with the spread of these diseases, you are now going to have another layer of problem, multiple and intersecting problems happening in the same place, where for the last 15 years, like Professor noted, we have been contending with Boko Haram terrorism. There is poverty, there is joblessness, unemployment, lack of opportunities, lack of money in the hands of people for basic purchases. And compounded with this water problem, this flood problem, then people will be in absolute abject despair. So the federal government needs to really set up a task force to respond to this crisis in a very structured manner, like the two professors have said. This is not a joke. This is an existential issue, almost a war situation, that we have to respond. The Nigerian Army, the Nigerian Navy, the Nigerian Air Force, Civil Defense, the Nigeria Police, they have to be mobilized to provide resources and manpower to cater for this. I didn't see a single modern boat in Maiduguri. They are using canoes, can you imagine, 21st century to evacuate people. I didn't see dinghies, rubber dinghies, motorized boats, nothing. There are no helicopters.
In other places,
exactly,
in other climes,
exactly,
when floods
exactly.
do occur.
Yeah.
Yes.
So when you deploy helicopters for counterinsurgency, now you have a greater problem than insurgency. Where are the helicopters? Where are the military trucks? Where are the trailers? Where are the bulldozers and graders to clear the way? I think we need to really be very, very serious about this.
I think that speaks to what Mr. Laju said earlier on about emergency preparedness.
Yeah.
Now, it appears we didn't learn much from the events of 2012 that devastated so many communities and so many states in Nigeria. And as unfortunate as this one in Maiduguri is, there is also a warning being put out now for, in fact, it's been categorized as red alert for states in the Niger Delta and most other states in the southern parts of Nigeria. Yeah. So we're likely to see a lot more of this year if these various states are not prepared.
Yeah, he has said it all. It's a long emergency. Aside from the fact that, of course, take it or leave it, food insecurity is inevitable. Sicknesses and diseases, they are something else. And beyond that, I saw a man looking for his wife and children up till now. They have not on TV from one of those people interview and everything. He couldn't say where the children are, where the wife is. That means that it's not emergency. You just say that you respond in terms of food alone, when it is equally necessary to equally look at how do you link up children with their parents and everything. And beyond that, it's likely, because there will be, people are going to get poorer even after the receding of water. People will get poorer. People's livelihood have been washed off, whether it doesn't matter the area of your work now, whether it's farming have been affected, and other occupations too are equally be impacted. And most houses have been demolished by the flood waters, by the, of course, the poor are the worst affected. The vulnerable, they are the vulnerable. But these people must be supported. This is overwhelming beyond Borno State government. Federal government should look at, because one thing that emergency preparedness will have told you, it will have told you the needs of the people when this quantum of disaster happens and what you should do and who should do what. Not, you don't prepare for war when you're already at the battleground. That is what we always do. And that is what is complicating all these emergencies, disasters we are having. And it's disarming us even when we are supposed to. What needs assessment? Inform that the federal government should bring 3 billion. What needs assessment? Because we just sit down somewhere and everything. And this is equally informed. If you look at the emergency, this thing, of course, they have new head now with barely no experience in humanitarian work. It's an administrative person because, in fact, what they said that he could manage finance, she could manage finance, is that she would be the, will FEPA do that in US? Will FEPA do that? These are technical issues that must be understood by the people who should respond. How many medical people are already in Maiduguri now? Those are the issues to save life. The primacy of life is what counts most when you are responding to emergency. Whether in terms of food and everything, like he has said, you prioritize children, women, some of them are pregnant, some of them are weak, some of them, you prioritize those vulnerable people, and then food and everything. And there's no shame, I've said it, if we are overwhelmed as a country, there's no shame requesting for support, immediate support when something like this happens, that we can't face it on our own. Look, average Nigeria, including some of us, are finding it difficult to feed now. Then you can imagine those even in ordinary life, ordinary situation, when things have not happened, they are poorer than us. You can now know what they are facing in the context of this disaster that has not only re-victimized them, but has re-decimated them. They are living livelihood they don't have. They have no, in fact, it's a condition of hopelessness. And the responsibility of government is now to create that hope that is already missing by intervention.
Imagine a family living on a flyover for so long.
For so long.
Since Tuesday.
Since Tuesday.
Even the mere exposure of people into beer here, do you know what it will attract? Pneumonia, you are talking of opportunistic diseases, troubles, traumas, and these are people, look, you have nowhere to lay your head, and you have no neighbor to turn to. I think, guess that was he was saying when he was talking of, even this is even worse than the insurgency. At least when you are displaced by insurgency, you can still move to your neighbor's house. Your neighbor has no house now. They have nowhere to put them. They are exposed. They are at risk of virtually everything. In fact, hunger, whether it is sicknesses, whether it's diseases, whether it's to cook. So farmers have been affected, sounders have been affected, and the risk is higher because, one, you are talking of a condition now that even 281 prisoners have escaped.
Yes.
That is another problem on its own. In fact, we cannot begin to draw the spiral effect of that in terms of impacting on the security of the people, in terms of impacting on the violence, extreme violence that is ongoing, in terms of intrusion of fear that we bring. Not to talk of wild animals that have escaped from
the zoo. Yeah.
From the zoo. So people are all, they are just in their street. And the intervention of the government should not just be, we put one, what is 3 billion? It's nonsense, absolute nonsense. A state has been sunk. I think we should put it the way it is. A state has been sunk into nada of poverty, into nada of misery, into nada of sheer hopelessness. And then we are talking of relief. What of recovery? Those that have died. Families should have closure to their loved one. If they are dead, let them know that they are dead, not that they begin to, one problem, where is like the man I gave instance of now. And many of them are like that.
Who are still looking
for their children, for their wife, for their husbands, and so on and so forth. So the problem is if the federal government should sit down and conduct rapid assessment. It's not about vice president visiting a place. All those things are just annoying. It's about, of course, that is equally a symbolism in governance when you visit as president and everything. But beyond that symbolism, what are the people going to anchor their hope and their the possibility of their existence as we go on in tackling this problem?
Okay.
So all this will have been addressed, at least if not all, with preparedness plan, with policy direction, with good people who have capacity for intervention, not politicians, not people that we just go there, oh, we are money, we are doing that. That is not emergency response. Not even about grain. What type of food do they need in terms of when their immunity has even been subdued? So all those things should come up.
What we should be seeing now, as it were, will be state governments not just making sympathy visits and condoling with Borno State government, but actually, doing so in practical terms by sending material needs of
In
the
emergency, people
of,
don't need, it's
of
not
Borno
condolence
State.
they need.
Right. Dr. Becker, let's quickly turn to you. Is there anything that NESRA, as an environmental agency, is doing in this regard in Borno at the moment, in Maiduguri at the moment?
Could you say that again?
Yes, I'm
The network
asking.
timed out again.
Yes, I was asking if, as a National Environmental Standard and Regulation Enforcement Agency, if NESRA is doing anything in particular to assist the people of Maiduguri and the other surrounding places which have been impacted so badly.
Sorry, I didn't get that. You just came back.
Okay, I'm asking if NESRA is doing anything to help the people of Maiduguri.
Oh, surely. As usual, our work would, after all this has gone down, we would have to do a lot of assessment and go back to actually the cause, now the cause, and then start instituting some preventive measures that, whether we're not taking before,
The network is a bit problematic, Dr. Becker, but if we're able to get you back before we round up, that's okay. Go ahead. Well, I'm afraid that network is getting really bad. But Ambassador, on a closing note, what do you expect the state and international organizations to do that will really impact the lives of those who have been affected? The dead are dead.
Yeah.
Those who are alive need assistance. They need, yes.
Immediately. What I would respectfully suggest is that let us start the process of recovery and mitigation internally from our own resources. I don't believe that Nigeria doesn't have the money. Nigeria has money, if we are serious. Let the federal government, let Mr. President came back yesterday, I understand. Let him call the governor of Borno State to him and say, look, Professor Babagana, what is your shopping list? What is your need? What is the urgent, most pressing demand of your government right now? And then let him come and tell the president the objective condition in which people live. People are in an apocalyptic situation. There is no need to hide it or to be diplomatic about it. Our people are exposed to the most dire vulnerability you can ever imagine. Let the president invite the vice president and the governor of Borno State to sit down and do a needs assessment within 1 hour. And then for the president to do a proclamation of meeting the needs of the people of Maiduguri and Borno. And let us see if within the next 3 days or 4 days, relief materials, how many, what quantity will reach Maiduguri, and even plan to evacuate people away from Maiduguri to Gombe, to Bauchi, to Damaturu, Patiskum, to resettle
At least temporarily.
Exactly. Because right now, even if the waters recede, the people cannot go back to their homes. And they cannot be left indefinitely under trees in IDP camps. Those IDP camps have been overtaken by snakes and lizards for so long. They are no longer usable. So we need to move people away from Maiduguri to other places. Let them be kept there until the integrity of their dwellings are ascertained. So I'm appealing to Mr. President to make an announcement of substantial intervention to relieve the distress of the people. The international community will come through the agency of the federal government. The appeal by the federal government. Like Professor said, we cannot just shy away from this and say we are too big to ask for assistance. We are not. This situation is overwhelming. If this happened in China today or India, it will still be overwhelming. Not to talk of it happening in Nigeria. So it is a very critical issue. I want to, at this point, really, as a citizen of Borno, to send my respectful condolences to His Royal Highness the Sheikh of Borno, Alhaji Abubakar Ibn Umar Garba Alamin Kanani, on the suffering of his people and his own personal ordeal, and also to the governor, Professor Babagama Umar Azalam, the Deputy Governor Usman Kadafur, and also the Executive Council of Borno State, the Emirate Council, and the Vice President.
All right.
We should encourage them to step up and do more.
Thank you so much.
For the people.
Thank you so much, Ambassador. That's the much time we allow us to take, about just 30 seconds.
Well, I hope we are going to learn from this and to appreciate the fact that emergency work is not a political work, should not be subjected to political interpretation. It's a serious thing that deal with humanity, and of course, it happens everywhere. It might not be prevented, but the risk and impact can be reduced.
Okay.
And that should be our focus as a country and as a nation.
Thank you so much, Benro Olajuigbe. He is the Executive Director, Emergency Risk Alert. And we have also had Ambassador Usman Sarki, who is Nigeria's former permanent representative to the United Nations. Thank you so much for your time. And Dr. Christopher Becker, Director, Environmental Quality Control of the National Environmental Standard and Regulations Enforcement Agency, NESRA, who joined us virtually from Jos. Thank you so much, Dr. Becker, for your time. And apologies for the poor network there. But of course, your message got through to Nigerians. Thank you so much. All right, that's our program for today. Please join us again when we bring you a fresh edition of People, Politics, and Power. The people is at the center of every development initiative. Bye for now.